Within the scope of wrestling media, there's always been one particular piece of content I've heard about over the past few years and have been wanting to find in full. It originally started with finding two random Reddit and Facebook posts that both featured matches from a WWF house show in Japan circa early 2002. While both posts mentioned the matches emanating from Yokohama, the more curious detail was that they aired for an eventual TV special. And so, after going through some rabbit holes to not only find the special anywhere online, but to also get a copy of it for preservation, I was blown away when I first watched this in its entirety. Not only does this include those matches that were previously posted, but plenty of extra footage that, to my knowledge, also hasn't been uploaded or discussed in great detail anywhere else. Today's video is, hopefully, going to rectify that, while also being a first for those who may not have even known of its existence. This 2-hour special highlights the WWF's first live event in Japan since 1994, as a part of its 3-city tour in Asia. Sprinkled in with highlights of the card include footage of the roster touring throughout each country and getting to see the legendary Naoya Ogawa taking part of the Federation's biggest event of the year for Japanese fans who may not have gotten a chance to experience it themselves. I'm also providing translations throughout the video for both on-screen text and various interviews and discussions. Though keep in mind that some of the original translations I got were slightly off and I've had to adjust them accordingly. So if any might be hard to follow, apologies in advance for it. But with all of that said, let's take a closer look at the WWF SmackDown Tour in Japan special from 2002. According to the translation, this version of the special aired on April 6th at 6:30 p.m. on J Sky Sports or just J Sports nowadays. The only known info about any original broadcast was that it took place on March 30th through TV Tokyo. To the sound of Saliva's Superstar, we start off with highlights of the Yokohama house show main event between Chris Jericho and The Rock, before going to clips of the roster at the airport and in training, as we finish with more highlights of the event before the special gets underway. A press conference is held on January 18th for the WWF's Japan event, featuring Chris Benoit, Tajiri, and Tori Wilson. Benoit says that it's an honor to return to the country that helped start his career as a part of the company, while Tori mentions loving her first time in Japan and can't wait to return in March. The Cruiserweight Champion then thanks both the wrestling media and general media for covering this event, and how important it is before the three stand together for the press to take pictures. Unfortunately for Chris, he wouldn't get to appear at Yokohama as he ended up getting pulled from the show at the last minute. Jumping ahead to February 28th, WWF Superstars and staff arrive at Narita International Airport to begin their tour throughout Asia, stopping to take pictures, sign autographs, and take some questions before heading on the tour buses as they prepare for the days to come. The next day, Tajiri, Funaki, Chris Jericho, and Haku take part in another press event at the hotel, as they all mention their excitement returning to Japan under the WWF.
It's great. I mean, this is my 32nd visit to Japan, and it's been almost 4 years since my last one. But since I started here pretty much, and I learned from some of the best wrestlers in the world here, it's great to be able to come back and to be in the main event at the Yokohama Arena in Japan as the WWF champion. So it's very nice to return. It's like my second wrestling home is Japan, and I've always felt that way.
I'm very happy to be back home. And like the champion was saying, that, you know, to look at them, this is the present and the future of WWF. And I'm very honored to be with them again, as, you know, as he said that, and it's true, the main event, you know, and also Tajiri and Funaki, you know, it's just great to see the young people. They he came here and sacrificed himself away from home and everything and be one of the best today in our business. Like Tajiri and Funaki, they left their home here and they went to America, and that's where they become one of the best tag team and one of the champions over there. They're all doing great things here for WWF, and I believe I'm honored to be with them here in the card of WWF at home.
というか一番のあれはですね、やっぱり WWF の選手として日本に戻ってこれたことが本当にすごいっていう自分の中でもすごいなと思ってます。まあ、日本にはしょっちゅう帰ってきてるんで別に日本っていうあれはないんですけど、その WWF の一員として日本の土を踏んだっていうのがすごい今回は一番重要だと。
そうですね、僕も全く同感です。で日本で試合するのは2年ぶり以上なんですけど、で実際日本に来るまでなんかねこうやっぱりこうピーンと来ないもんあったんですけど、やっぱこう昨日飛行機で日本へ降り立ちまして、そしてホテルに着いたらファンの人もロビーにいっぱい来てるわけですよ。空港にもいっぱい来てるし、でなんだかすごく楽しみですね。今日もなんかこういう記者の方もいっぱい来ていただいて、頑張りますよ。
Well, I think it would be interesting for Chris Jericho to wrestle Akiyama, maybe, or Kawada, or Yasuda, to see who's the true champion of the world, to see who the true undisputed champion is, the true living legend, the true Mr. Main Event of the world. Beyond that, I would like maybe someday to wrestle with Yuji Nagata again. He is... it's funny because we were together in WCW maybe in 1997 or 1998. We were both kind of at the same position, same level, and now we've both kind of grown, and it'd be, I think it would be a great match as well with him. There's so many great wrestlers in Japan, as there is in the United States as well. So, but I'd like to see who the true undisputed champion is.
Meanwhile, at Gold's Gym in Yokohama, a handful of wrestlers, including Big Show, Devon, and Billy Kidman, train for their upcoming matches, while American Badass plays over the footage. Over at Yokohama Arena, fans wait outside for the show to start, with a variety of signs on display, while answering questions about what they're most excited to see that night. The next clip is the arrival of Naoya Ogawa as he heads into the venue to help call the action on commentary before the WWF roster pull in from their buses. The gates are eventually open and the fans are let through, going to a shot of the arena seats being filled as we're introduced to our broadcast team for the special. Our navigator Yoshinari Tsuji, commentator Naoya Ogawa, and the charismatic translator Keisuke Morimoto. The trio prepare for WWF action at their desk, including action figures and The Rock's autobiography book, with Tsuji describing why this event is important to Japanese fans.
辻吉成もお届けしていくわけなんですが、今日は実況解説というよりもですね、もう何しろ楽しもうと、スポーツエンターテインメントの頂上を今極めているこのワールドレスリングフェデレーション WWF、 まあ我々がですね実際に見てどう感じるのかで、今徐々にですねこの客席もですね開場されまして、お客さんものすごい完売状態らしいですね。小川さんね、
これ来る時並んでましたもん。正直言ってびっくりした、
びっくりした。僕もね横浜ので新横浜のね駅前ちょこっと車で通ったんですけど、ケインがいっぱいいましたよ。ケインが
どこにですか？
ケインがいっぱいいるからどれが本当のケインか分かんないけど要するにみんなそのノリで仮面かぶって歩いてんだよ。
もうみんな慣れきっちゃってますもんね。みんなもう数こんな感じで歩いてますから。
だから日本において横浜においては、今日は季節外れのハロウィンみたいな雰囲気ねえ、こういろいろスーパースターが目白押しですけど、
もうね WWF と言ったらね、これしかないでしょ。
何必殺、おカモンステイシーちゃんおいいいのかよおい、これも作ったのかよ。
何しろねこれをね、もう目の前で下から見れるってのは何とも言えないよこれ。
いやステイシーといえば
While the three continue to banter between each other, the show officially starts with Tony Chimel and our MC for the night, Michael Cole, hyping the crowd, including Pyro and Ballyhoo, before Shane McMahon makes his way to the ring. Shane thanks the fans for allowing the wrestlers to perform tonight before Mr. Yamaguchi begins to translate and the fans immediately boo.
君たちの前でこういうパフォーマンスできることすごい光栄に思います。そしてマクマホンファミリーを代表してこのそしてのパフォーマンスを見せていることを光栄に思います。
Shane calls an audible and tells him to leave the ring, much to the fans' delight, before thanking them for allowing the WWF to return to the land of the rising sun. Now the action gets underway with our opening contest, as Edge challenges William Regal for the Intercontinental Championship. It's worth noting that most of the matches shown are going to be quick highlights, so you won't get to see them in their entirety or even see the finishes. Keep that in mind as we go along. A test of strength between the two leads to the future Rated R superstar gaining the advantage before Regal kips up to fight back and lock Edge in a submission. Cutting to Lord Steven, attempting to lift his opponent, but the former IC champion reverses it into a bridge for a near fall. As Regal keeps his grip and flips Edge over into a powerbomb for another 2 count. The former WWF commissioner reverses an Irish whip attempt, but Edge ducks and hits the spear off the opposite side, but isn't able to win back the title. The last clip we see is Edge nailing a crossbody off the top, with William going on to get the win and start things off by retaining his IC title. We continue with the Divas in action, as Lita takes on Mighty Molly. Lita gets a big pop from the Yokohama crowd during her entrance, as we're shown Molly reversing a corner attack into a snake eyes on the top turnbuckle, with the future women's champion hitting the not quite Three Amigos onto Lita for the 2. Later into the match, the Team Extreme member starts her comeback with some clotheslines and a dropkick, ending with a flying head scissors off the ropes. As Lita gets sent to the corner, she's able to avoid Molly's handspring attack and nail the Twist of Fate, presumably hitting the moonsault, and going on to defeat the Hurricane sidekick in Japan. Our next title match features Haku challenging Diamond Dallas Page for the European Championship. DDP gets the pyro treatment as the fans feel the bang before Page grabs a mic.
It's me! And even though I'm from the USA, tonight, DDP is positively Japan! And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing! What?
Haku gets fed up with waiting and attacks the former WCW champion before the bell, maintaining control of the match, as Dallas tries to fight back, but gets caught into a bear hug off the ropes. Though he's eventually able to reverse the former Main's offense with a DDT. When Haku takes back control and applies a sleeper, the crowd will the European champion to escape and hit a jawbreaker, following up with a discus lariat and neckbreaker for the near fall. DDP misses a running clothesline in the corner and receives some knife-edge chops from one of the Faces of Fear, with Page eventually finding the way to pin Haku and retain his European Championship. The WWF Tag Team Championship is on the line next, as Billy and Chuck defend against the Hardy Boys, with Lita returning to accompany them to the ring. As Matt hits his middle rope leg drop onto Billy, we cut to Poetry in Motion onto Chuck. Billy is able to dodge Jeff's attack, only to walk into a tornado DDT from the inventor of Mattitude. But before Brother Nero can hit the Swanton, Chuck cuts him off on the top rope. The former DX member nails the one and only onto Matt for a 2, before going to footage of Lita hitting Billy with a top rope Hurricane Rana, setting up for the Twist of Fate and Swanton Bomb, but doesn't get the Hardys their victory. After Palumbo superkicks Matt behind Earl Hebner's back, Jeff clotheslines Chuck to the outside, as Billy would go on to pin the other Team Extreme member to win and retain the tag team gold. Now on to our other tag team bout of the evening. Bubba Ray and Devon bring the Duchess of Dudleyville, Stacy Keibler, along to take on the massive team of Kane and the Big Show. As Show runs the ropes and pays tribute to his former and future NWO mate Scott Hall, we see him attempting to chokeslam both Dudley boys, with the ECW alumni briefly stopping the Giant and sending him off the ropes, but getting knocked down with a double clothesline. Both Dudley boys make Schuster pay for his actions as Devon hits the wazap headbutt, before we finally go to Kane gaining some offense with his clothesline off the top rope. The end result is the future World Tag Team Champions going on to defeat the Dudleys in the middle of Yokohama Arena. We cut back to Tsuji, Ogawa, and Morimoto, as they discuss the Hurricane and why he, much like other comic book superheroes, gets his strength from putting on a cloak or cape. Said heroic superstar is in action next, as the Hurricane takes on Funaki, with his fellow Kind Time member Taka Michinoku in his corner. This would end up being one of Taka's final appearances in the WWF before being released. As you'd imagine, the crowd go crazy for Funaki, while he and Helm start the match trading moves and reversals before Hurricane asks to shake Shoichi's hand. But Funaki pokes his eyes with the other hand to briefly gain control. He's then unable to prevent Sugar Shane from reversing a hip toss into a fireman's carry and landing his own hip toss before attempting a pinfall off a Russian leg sweep. The future SmackDown announcer avoids a running corner attack and takes a moment to mock his opponent before nailing the basement dropkick and start appealing to the crowd, including his own parents sitting in the nosebleed section. But for taking too long to taunt, Hurricane gets even and shakes him off the top rope before his opponent attempts to fake him out with another handshake, but is able to get him on the receiving end of a stun gun and clothesline. Funaki tries to reason with the crowd turning on him, but focuses back onto the match by slamming Hurricane's face into 3 turnbuckles, only for the superhero to reverse and slam his head onto the last one multiple times. The former 3-count member follows with a suplex, but misses a grounded elbow when Funaki moves and delivers some stomps, as the future Cruiserweight Champion is still dumbfounded at the crowd's reaction before he hits a suplex for the near fall. Funaki sends Helms off the ropes and mistakenly sends his fist onto the canvas as Hurricane gets in a sunset flip, but gets thrown to the outside while Funaki distracts Mr. Yamaguchi from seeing Taka taking a cheap shot before sending Helms back in. Someone at ringside reacts to Funaki's failed pin attempts. As Show transitions into a sleeper, keeping the man who supposedly flies grounded for a few moments before the Hurricane's second wind kicks in as he hits a neckbreaker, leading to the double down. The Japanese fans help will Hurricane back on his feet as he starts his comeback, taking a moment to put his cape back on before connecting with the diving crossbody for the 2. The eye of the Hurricane gets reversed into a close roll-up, as does the Hurra chokeslam, but Helms finally hits his finisher and tries to win the match, only for Taka to get on the apron. Hurricane uses Funaki as a battering ram to knock Michinoku off and try to pin him, only for Sho to roll over and keep his opponent's shoulders down for 3 to get the victory in his home country, before high-fiving the fans on his way to the back. The co-owner of the WWF returns to Japan as Ric Flair makes his way to the ring, shaking hands with Kaiji Moto at ringside before Nate gets to thank his fans in the country.
It is my great privilege and honor to be back in the great country of Japan one more time.
また日本に戻ってこれで大変嬉しい。
A great country that is so rich in wrestling traditions. And tonight, the World Wrestling Federation will continue to add to this great tradition. I would like to say thank you. For 30 years, I have been coming to Japan. That's a long time. As the NWA, WCW, and World Wrestling Federation champion, I was privileged to face great challengers like Jumbo Tsuruta.
Jumbo Tsuruta のお話ですね、今。
Ken Rude.
天竜ですね。
Bruiser Brody. Stan Hansen. Terry Funk. Harley Race. Antonio Inoki. Ricky Choshu. Chono. Fujinami. The Giant Baba. And the Great Muta.
またですね。
まあ、グレートムタですよね、武藤さんはね。
Fortunate man and very privileged to have been part of the great legacy of wrestling in Japan. And I hope and will be privileged to come back to the great country of Japan with the World Wrestling Federation for years to come.
William Regal storms out, taking exception to Flair pandering to the people with a slap to the face, but quickly regrets his choice when he gets put into the figure 4 to a big pop as Rick gets to style and profile in Yokohama. The next segment of the special focuses on a sit-down interview with Tajiri, starting the questions by asking about his first encounter with professional wrestling.
プロレスは好きだったんですよけどね、その頃ね漫画家になりたかったんですよ俺。
そういう漫画が、まあ、漫画のあの頃、まあ、ジャンプとかいっぱいありましたけど、
でそういう漫画もみんな見てたから俺読まなかったんですけど、
どういう
アメリカのスヌーピーのね単行本をねいっぱい集めて読んでたんですよ。
Then going into his eventual admiration for wrestling in Japan, especially with one notable wrestler.
いや、まあプロレスは好きで見てたんですよ。で博多スターレンである大会っていうのは全部どの団体でも見てたんですよね。でもね、他の団体見てもそんなに衝撃は受けなかったんですけど、ユニバーサルを見た時は衝撃を受けたんですよね。浅井さんのルトモドラゴンのあれ見ても浅井さんの動きにしびれちゃってね、かっこよくて、それでもう翌日にはレスラーになろうとジムへ行って鍛えて、それがきっかけですね。
それおいくつぐらい
？19歳かな。
Like many names of this era, Ultimo Dragon helped inspire Tajiri to take a chance on becoming a professional wrestler.
やっぱりね、その浅井さんがリングの上で醸し出してたその生き様のかっこよさってもんにしびれたんだと思うな、今思うと。当時はね、まだ登竜門もない時代で、そしてね、その浅井さんにしびれたから浅井さんに弟子入りしたいっていう風には考えなかったんだけど、だから俺も浅井さんのように生きたいっていう、それで俺はもうその頃からだからこう思考回路がね、外国に行くようにもインプットされ始めてたんですよね。でその果てがこのあれですよ、海外フォローですよ、現在の。選択したっていうかそこしか受かんなかったんですよ。数社ね、履歴書送ったんですけど全部突っ返されたんですよ。で理由を電話で聞いたらね、ちっちゃいからって言うんですよ。
We then learned about him joining IWA Japan in 1994.
まだ団体も旗揚げしたばっかりで、こう道場もない、教える人もいない、団体としての基盤もしっかりしてない時期だったんで、だからね、実はね、練習なんつったって錦糸町にある遠藤光雄会長の遠藤ジム行ってそこで鍛えてるだけなんですよ。リングに上がったのなんかデビューする前10回ぐらいじゃないかな。で今全日本上がってる荒谷さんが一応教えてくれてたんですけど、だから10回ぐらい、それこそ試合前2時間ぐらい練習して、だから20時間の練習でデビューですよ。もうなんて本当に舐めてますよね、今思うと。対戦相手は恵まれてたんですよね。ビクター・キニョネスが物価をやってて、シルバーキングだとかテハノだとかスペラストロだとか、もうメキシコの一流どころはもういっぱい来てたんですよ。外人の筋は多分当時日本で一番だったんじゃないですか、会社は。でそういう人と実践を通しての練習ですよね。だからそれがやっぱ他の団体で道場で練習してるよりもやっぱそっちの方が身についたものは大きかったんじゃないかなって思うんですけどね。やっぱ WWF で今それなりにこう受けてる理由っていうのが、こう他人が使わない奇想天外な技を使うっていうところにあるみたいなんでね、ファンが支持してくれてる理由っていうのは、やっぱその頃学んだものが大きかったんじゃないかな。
Yoshihiro then recalls an overseas trip that would give him his first opportunity with the WWF.
でその頃一回ね、レッスルマニアをね生で見てるんですよ。ちょっとあるその関係者に連れられて見に行って、でその選手が泊まってるホテルに一緒に泊まったんですよね。で朝ね、食堂に降りてったらね、ショーン・マイケルズがいたんですよ。でほらショーン・マイケルズだって言われても俺誰か知らなかったんですよ。それぐらいのこと知識しかなかったんですよ、アメリカのことは。そしてね、そのレッスルマニアをショーン・マイケルズとブレッド・ハートが1時間ドローやったレッスルマニアありましたよね。あれのね、翌日のローに俺出ることになっちゃったんですよ。それでその人が話しつけてくれて、こいつ明日どこでもいいから使ってやってくれっつって、で出ました。その時が僕の WWF のデビュー戦なんですよ、実は。まだキャリア2年もやってない時じゃないかな、あれでローに出てるんですよ、今思うと。で当時は何にも分かんないもんだから緊張も何にもしなくて恐ろしいですね、知らないっていうことは。
After leaving Big Japan Pro Wrestling, Tajiri recalls how he got his first major opportunity in the States through ECW.
一番は、やっぱりその昔からこうだんだんこう頭の中で育てていった外国に行くんだっていうのが、やっぱそういう思考がね抑えきれなくなって、やっぱそういう行動になっちゃったっていう。でとにかくプロレスで世界のいろんなとこ行きたいっていうそういう目標が最初からレスラーになる前からあったんでね、やっぱそれを果たすにはやっぱ日本出る時期を見て、今しかないと。ECW がね WCW に選手をごっそり引き抜かれてピンチになったんですよ。でポール・イーが何でもいいからいいのいないかなって探し始めて、たまたま僕の試合をビデオで見たらしいんですよ。それでなんだこれはっつって、でその頃ポーリーとビクターが親しかったんでね、でポーリーがビクターに電話したら、それなら俺はいつでも連絡するから呼んでやるよっつって、それで行ったんですよね。最初からじゃあ契約書やるから来いっていう話じゃなかったんですよ。メキシコ人のアンティファスってやつがいて、そいつと2人で呼ばれたんですよね。でお前らやってみろっつって、でよかった方と俺は契約するってポーリーは言ったんですよ。だから最初は必死でしたよね。でなんとか俺が契約勝ち取ることができまして、 もうタッグ選手権も取ったしテレビ選手権も取ったし、3つのベルトのうち2つは取りました。
The former ECW TV champion gets asked what convinced him to jump to the WWF instead of WCW.
きっかけはね、実はね、今回、もう1年前になるのか契約したのは WWF と、そのさらに1年前にもね、1回実は話があったんですよ。俺が ECW のテレビ選手権だったチャンピオンだった頃で、その頃はね、まだ ECW でやりたいなと思ってたんで、一応お断りさせていただいて、もう ECW が潰れるっていう情報を WWF がキャッチしてたみたいなんですよね。でね、でビクターのところに電話があったらしいんですよ。で ECW が潰れるらしいって言うんですって。でそれについてお前がよく面倒見てる田尻が欲しいからね、お前から連絡つけろっつって、それでビクターから電話があったんですよ。
まあその時はまだ WCW もあったと思うんですけど、
ありましたね。
選択肢としては考えてた。
WC からも話が来たんですよ。けどね、やっぱり WCW にあんま魅力感じなかったな。でその頃のね WCW はもう崩壊へ向けてもうまっしぐらっていう時期でね、会社の中の統制が取れてない感じだったんですよ。でね、WCW の幹部3人から連絡があったんですよ。でそれぞれ言うことがみんな違うんですよ。この会社ダメだなってもうそれで思って、でやっぱ一番はやっぱ WWF ですからね、アメリカじゃ。もちろん自信ありましたよ。だって WWF が欲しくて声をかけてきてくれたわけですから。
The discussions of Tajiri's new character in the Federation led to him becoming Commissioner Regal's servant, helping to build a mutual respect between the two.
あれはね、ポール・リーから聞かされたんですよ。こういうこと明日から始まるぞって。もうそれ聞いた時はこれはいけるなと思ったんですよ。俺はこういうの絶対うまくできると思って、多分見事当たりましたね、あれは。俺ね、今でもあれやりたいんですよ。
また戻り
大好きなんですよ、あれやるの。リーガルもね、あれは楽しかったらしいんですよ、すごく。とにかくリーガルはね、僕の試合全部見せてくれるんですよ。で試合が終わったら僕が寄ってくか向こうから寄ってくるかして必ず何か言ってくれるんですよね。で僕もリーガルをすごいリスペクトしてますから、素直に聞くし、もう細かいところからいろいろ直されてますよ、毎日。
それ今でも続いてる？
今でももちろんです。
The interview wraps up with Tajiri reflecting on his journey to America and taking part in the biggest wrestling promotion in the world.
まあこうやってなんていうかな、やっぱこう人が生きていく上でこうきっと定めってものがあって、その定めの上でね、こう WWF に到達してそこで活躍するっていうのは、まあ僕が持って生まれた定めであろうなと、この後どうなるかわからないけれども、間違いなくこの僕の人生の中でね、ある一時期にインプットされたこう人生の中でもおそらく1番目か2番目に大事な時期じゃないかなって、今そういう人生のね、すごく貴重な時間を過ごさせていただいてますね、この会社では。
Returning to the broadcast team, the three are excited to see Tajiri return home to defend his cruiserweight title, and especially to see Tori Wilson. I want to take a quick second to play a clip from a different airing of the Japan Tour special where Kidman is asked about his thoughts on the Yokohama event.
何しろ興奮しております。田尻対キッドマンの試合ご覧ください。
Well, I guess that's a hard question to answer. I always try to give a good performance. I like to work hard, and so hopefully the fans appreciate it. And whether I go out there and have a terrible match or whether I have a great match, I always do my best to try to put on a good show. But I've wrestled Tajiri before a few times, and he's one of my favorite opponents to wrestle now. So hopefully it'll be a good one.
The Cruiserweight Championship is up for grabs as Kidman looks to take it away from Tajiri in his home country. The fans continue going crazy for Tajiri when the bell rings, with the native superstar being able to keep the former filthy animal grounded by targeting the left leg before Kidman can reverse and apply a headlock and head scissors submission. Tajiri shows some incredible strength and speed by pushing Billy off of him, leading to both men trading a few more reversals before standing off to a massive ovation from the Yokohama crowd. Kidman gets another headlock in, but has to switch gears when the champion reverses the rebound hip toss and attempts some sidekicks. Both competitors trading more moves and kipping up for some more adoration from the fans. A quick handshake later, Billy sends Yoshihiro into the corner and throws him across the ring. Tajiri lifts the ex-Flock member onto the apron and sends him to the floor thanks to a sidekick, but gets one more crowd pop after nailing the Asai moonsault from the middle rope to the outside. Tajiri takes in the fans chanting his name, but goes back to attacking Kidman in the ring, laying some shots in the corner, but Kidman reverses to get in his own chops, and tries to whip Tajiri across the ring again, only to run straight into a tarantula attempt, but his instincts help him throw Tajiri over the top and follow him with a body press for good measure. Billy throws Tajiri back in to try and win the match, except the champion rolls back out and then tries to walk away with Tori, but Kidman has none of it, returning to the ring to keep the former ECW Tag Team Champion grounded briefly. After escaping the hold, Tajiri attempts a rebound spinning wheel kick, but the challenger slides under and is able to stay ahead with a rebound dropkick, but isn't enough to win back the Cruiserweight title. The Japanese buzzsaw falls into an all-familiar trap, as Kidman reverses a powerbomb into the sit-out facebuster and goes for the shooting star press. Billy fails to connect when Tajiri moves, the fans willing him back in to hit another shuffle kick and standing moonsault for a near fall. While Tajiri reverses a running corner attack, he runs straight into a powerbomb that gives the Cruiserweight veteran a 2, but a handspring elbow off the ropes helps to even the playing field. Billy reverses a tornado DDT attempt out of the corner for another kickout, but ends up running straight into the corner where Tajiri can finally lock in the tarantula. The follow-up buzzsaw kick doesn't land, with the two trading more reversals before Kidman plants his opponent onto the mat, but the match still continues. Some more reversals lead to Kidman hitting a rebound Hurricane Rana, but Tajiri slides out to attack and hit the buzzsaw kick to get the win and retain his Cruiserweight Championship. As the fans celebrate the win, Dean Malenko appears to hand Tajiri the title belt and raise his arm, before Tori also gets an ovation from the crowd. Easily the best match of this entire show, but we still have plenty left to get to in this special.
どうでした横浜のファンっていうのは。
いや日本のファンの方がね意外とこう知ってるんで、びっくりしましたね。最初ねやる前はね日本的なノリで終わるんじゃないかなっていう心配もちょっとあったんですけど、シーンとしててね、いやそれがねところがどっこいで、
他のレスラーたちってどんな感じで日本。
いやもうみんなもうね素晴らしいと本当にワンダフルだって本当に言ってましたね。別にリップサービスで言ってるんだけど本当にそう言ってましたみんな。なんか日本向けの試合をしたんじゃないかっていうような書かれ方もちょっとされてたんですけど、いや本当にねなんでかって言ったらその理由はなんかこう普段やらないようなこうアクションもやってたんですね。いやけどねハウスショーなんですよ。いつも通りのハウスショーの試合をしたんですよ。テレビとハウスショーは違うんですよ。だから日本の方もテレビだけじゃなくてアメリカに来て生でハウスショーを見てみないと WWF のもっと深いところは分からないという、もっと選手のねテレビにローやスマックダウンに出てくるのは表の個性だけだから、ハウスショーねもっといろんな裏技を持ってるレスラーは、そういうのやっぱ見ていただきたいですね今度は。
まあ 3.1 横浜大会ですね、無事成功ということでいいと思うんですが、今後その WWF の日本マットでのですね展開というのはどの程度聞いてるんですか、武井さん。
いや何も聞いてません実は。
新聞紙上でですね、10月にドームとか、という話も出てるみたいなんですが、
なんか日本ではそう報道されてますけどこっちじゃ聞かないんですよね実は。もしかしたら僕が知らないだけかもしれないんですけど、まああれだけ大成功を収めた大会ですし収益も相当上がったみたいだから、まあ当然今後は日本というのも視野に入ってるんでしょうねこの会社のきっと。
横浜大会スマックダウンツアーということで、ロックを中心にした、オールスターズだったんですが、逆に、まだまだ日本に来てない選手も、カート・アングルとかですね、トリプル H とか、あとはその今のストーンコールドとか、あります。その辺が乗り込んできたら、ドームも全然不可能じゃないという感じだと思うんですけど。
そうですね。それからドームもできるだろうし、逆に昔レッスルマニアのいくつか忘れましたけど3カ所開催ってのありましたよね。そんなことだってできるんじゃないですか。ひょっとしたら東京、大阪、札幌なんてね、その3班に分けて3カ所でそんなこともできると思うんですよ。
わかりました。じゃあ最後にですね、カメラに向かって日本のファンにメッセージをお願いします。
日本の皆さん、3月1日はどうもありがとうございました。次回日本に行くときはですね、もっとすごいメンバーがきっと日本に大挙上陸すると思いますんで、楽しみにしてください。
Going back to February 27th, The Rock arrives to Japan for the Scorpion King press conference the following day, as the People's Champion takes in his first journey to the country. Returning to ringside, our announcers hype up the main event Undisputed title match while discussing The Rock's mic work and his millions of fans. It's time to close out an incredible night in Yokohama as Chris Jericho returns to Japan to defend the undisputed WWF Championship against The Rock. The Rock-inspired signs start popping up throughout the crowd during his entrance, as we cut to the future final boss telling Y2J to just bring it. Proceeding with some snap arm drags. Rock later nails his spinebuster and attempts his first people's elbow in Japan, but Jericho reverses to lock in the walls, as it quickly cuts to the Rock bottom before both men are down. A low blow gives Jericho a chance to roll his opponent up, but only gets a 2. Going back to clips from the start of this special shows Rock hitting another spinebuster when Jericho runs off the ropes, and lock in the sharpshooter while Earl Hebner is knocked out. But despite Rocky's best efforts, the Dudley Boyz would interfere and help Chris Jericho get the pin to leave Yokohama Arena still the undisputed champion. When Chris heads up the ramp, Rock tells him to bring his candy ass back into the ring, this ending as well as you'd expect when Jericho gets hit with the Rock bottom and People's Elbow. The Scorpion King sends the fans home happy and delivers his signature catchphrase as confetti falls across the ring while he raises both the American and Japanese flags high in the air. With the event concluded, Tsuji, Ogawa, and Morimoto share their thoughts on everything that went down.
本当にね、ため息と驚きと感動ということですね、小川さん、率直なところ、いかがでしょう。
いやもうね、何を言ってもね、放心状態、もう特にね、パンチラピラッと見る、俺とちょっとそっち系の方が、
いやいや、もう本当に、ね、
目に焼き付いちゃってね、
やっぱり出し方っていうんですか、女性の出し方もうまいですよね。このリタがですね、いや、すげえいいと思ったら、ところどころ、その後トーリーが出てきて、ね。でいやいやステイシーとこ
れが一番お尻ペンペン出た時はね、もうね、やったぞこら。
いや俺もケインが本当にここに立ちはだかっちゃったからね本当に俺はね、小川さんのね10分の1も見えてないと思うんですけどあれだけが心残りです。
でもね、最後ね、本当になんていうの、お客さんがね、帰らないのね、
帰らなかったね。
これはね、不思議ですよ、本当に。
いやなんかまたやってくれるんじゃないかっていうね、
知り尽くしちゃってる人がみんな来てて、ライブの立ち見のプロレスでも初めて見ましたよ。
いやよかったですね。
もう前から全部立っちゃってるのって、
本当ね、
歌でもないんじゃないかみたいな。
これある意味で革命ではありますよね。
お客さんの見方から言ってね、もう革命どころじゃないですよこれ。
なるほど、
違うもん見ちゃったみたいな、本当に
ね。これもさ、いつもね、翻訳しながら日本語に直しながらということで抜群の作用を見せてくれてるわけなんですけど、しかし今回改めて肉眼で見て生で聞いていかがでした？
何もかも違いますね、実際。まだ夢心地です。
しかしどうでしょう、まあ、森本さんの中でももしかしたら小川さんの中にもあったかもしれませんが、日本のファンがねどこまで本当にねこの WWF の空気を読み取って乗ってくれるんだとかあったと思うんですけど、
でもまあ最初からね、もう出だしがねバッチリだったじゃないですか。
いや我々は本当に考えすぎでしたね。でましてやねそれをね裏切ってくれましたね、日本のファンは。
最初からカード見せちゃってるよね、こいつらやるなみたいなね、みんなお客さん乗せちゃって、そこからもう一気にいっちゃいましたからね。
いっちゃいましたからね。
スタートが上だからもう一気にガーンといって、
そしてジェリコロック戦、森本さん、はい、宮田さん、
緩急のつけ方ですかね、それであともう後ろ会場全体、悲鳴と歓声が交互に、こんな体験したことないですね。
今日は横浜アリーナで行われましたけど、また日本上陸が多分あるんじゃないかな、かなりのパーセンテージでその辺のですね希望をつないで我々横浜アリーナを後にしたいと思いますけどもね、本当にどうもお二方ありがとうございました。楽しかったです。スマックダウンジャパン最高でした。最高。
The WWF roster arrived to Singapore the following day at Changi Airport. As Big Show, Kane, and Torrie Wilson get to sit down with a few members of the Singaporean royal family. While Team Extreme head to an autograph session before journeying through the country. With camcorder in hand, the trio stop at various points, getting some photos with Ronald McDonald before grabbing a bite to eat and taking in the sights. Big Show welcomes us to the Petronas Towers in Malaysia on March 4th, giving us some fun facts about the location.
This is the tallest sky bridge in the world. If you remember the movie Entrapment with Sean Connery and what was the girl's name? What was the girl's name? Catherine Zeta-Jones. God, I drool over every time I see her on TV. I don't remember her name. That's what it was. I thought about her and forgot her name. Anyway, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Sean Connery movie Entrapment. This is where they shot it. This is supposed to be the big Yakitori Bank, I think it was, or something like that. Actually, it's the tallest sky bridge in the world. Great building. The temperature of that building on the inside is about 66 or 67 degrees year-round. You want to go up there and shoot some stuff? They already got it from last year.
He heads in to check out some clothing and pose for nearby customers before heading back out to deal with the absurd humidity in the city.
Right now, it's about 12:30 in the afternoon. It's about 98 degrees, about 80% humidity. And I am sweating like a fat guy at a diet boot camp.
We jump ahead to March 16th, seeing Ogawa emerge at Narita Airport as he prepares to go to Toronto to experience WrestleMania 18. Ogawa takes a moment to describe his trip onto North American soil.
いよいよアメリカに上陸しました。はい。改めてですね、この間の3.1の横浜の WWF の日本大会、はい。小川さんにはどのような影響を与えたんですか。
まあ影響っていうかね、もともとテレビとかいろいろ見せてて知識はあったんですけど、まあでもそんなに影響っていうかやっぱね見た時はやっぱさすがだなって思いますけど、だけどやっぱ自分にやっぱこういうねエンターテインメントとしてはこれからはこういうのも必要なんじゃないのかなと、まあ勉強した部分も多いですけどね。目的ですか。目的ね、まあとにかく行ってみようと、それだけじゃないかな。まあチャンスがあらばとかいうね、まあ腹黒いところもありますけどね。だけどまあとにかくまずは行ってみなきゃ分かんないと。行かなきゃ何もないけど行ってみりゃなんとかなるさみたいな、まあ半分猪木イズム入っちゃうのかなそんなとこもあればという気持ちで行きます。そうですね、 NWO がねどういう関わり合いをしてくるのかとか、まあ、そこでしょうね。あれほど派手な横のシーンもあったことだしね、ロックをこう車にぶつけ出したりとかあそこまで演出してるんで、まあ本当にこれにかけてんだなと ホーガンもこれがなんていうの、これのためになんかこう入ってきたみたいなのもありますんで、まあ一番どういう見せ方してくれるのかなと、またあとその後も楽しみですけどね。
Later on, he walks into Fan Axxess, encountering the mold of Stacy Keibler's legs as well as Rikishi's posterior right next to it. He also finds the different vehicles, or the remainder of them, including Undertaker's hearse and motorbike, Triple H's car from Survivor Series 2000, Vince's Corvette that's now cleared of cement, and the ambulance that carried The Rock and Hollywood Hogan rammed into the previous month. There's also a SmackDown Just Bring It tournament, a TV guide stand selling copies that have covers with various WWF stars featured, a memorabilia section with several different title belts, including the recently retired WCW titles, as well as a life-size cutout and handprint stand of Andre the Giant. Ogawa then checks out the merch store with dozens of action figures on display, plus a Jack-specific booth with set-up rings and the SmackDown entrance set. The final stop is the ring, in between live matches being held, but he decides to head on out before it gets too late. The following day, Naoya meets with WWF Vice President Roger Marmont, as Roger recalls seeing Ogawa at the 1992 Olympics. He then gets surprised when Tajiri enters the room, as the two have a sit-down conversation.
あれが釣れてね、試合出るのでいいな。
マネージャー釣れたからいいんじゃないですか、試合で。今回誰かピックアップして。
日本だとね、結構通用しないからね。
ああ。
横浜本当にすごかったですね。見てて。
ありがとうございます。僕一回場外落ちた時、わざと小川さんの前に行ってみたんですけど、あれなんか。
なんとなく来てくれた。ちょっと嬉しかったみたいな。
そうですか。いや、けどお客さんも湧いてくれてね、本当にみんなね、喜んでましたよ、横浜のショーは。
そうですね。もう一戦目からヒートしました。
なんていうかこう、アメリカみたいにずっと湧いてるわけじゃないんですけど、こう、レスラーがこう狙ったところでドーンと湧いてくれたんで、すごいやりやすかったですよ。
日本のファンってね、結構分かってますよね。
そうですね。そうですね。
ここでレスラーがやってくれっていう、この呼吸っていうのが、
そうですね。
非常になんかそれが波があって、日本のファンってここまで分かっちゃってんのみたいな。レスラーなんか分かるじゃないですか。
そうですね。ここで感じますよね。
ここでやってくれって言ってるのに、でもお客さんがそれに反応してる。ファンの方が燃えちゃってんのかなみたいな。
そうですね。いや、逆に雑誌の記者の人たちもなんか、初めて見たけどびっくりしたみたいなことを結構書いてる人もいたんで、これはファンの方がよく知ってるんだなと。そうです。
また、今度はドームがやられるって話聞いてますけど、
なんか、日本の新聞とかでそういう話を、僕も見たんですけど、聞いてないですね。
またね、ドームの時はまた盛り上げてほしい。
はい。また解説をお願いしますね。思ったらその頃、なんか WWF の小川ナウヤとして、したら逆に上がってる
大丈夫なことは考えてませんよ、本当ですか。
いや、今回そういう話を、書いてね。
いえ、もう、なんだと思います。だってニュートラル。
どうもありがとうございました。
We then walk outside the Skydome as Ogawa heads on in, dealing with the incredibly cold Canadian weather, but shares the excitement of the fans for the WWF's biggest event of the year. Ogawa settles into one of the skyboxes of the venue, sharing his thoughts on the scope of the Federation's biggest spectacle.
モニターが4台、メイン1台。この設備すごいよね。客席もね、こうライト当てちゃうからね、これまた日本にないような、感覚ですよね、これはね。特に この舞台の装置ね、光、もう日本だとね、そろそろ始まるぞ、日本だとそろそろね、リングの上しかないけど、ここは全部映してますから、っていうかもう始まりますから、うわー、始まった始まった、すごいよこれ、皆さん聞こえます？これそろそろ来ますよ、ドーンと。うわー、いいな。
We end the tour in Japan special with Ogawa looking back on his WrestleMania experience, preparing to return home while trying to catch as much sleep as possible for the flight back.
レスルマニアにふさわしかったなと。というかね、レスルマニアの雰囲気は本当にアリーナ以上だったですね、正直言って。お客さんの盛り上がりも結構、アリーナもすごかったですけど、横浜アリーナもね、すごかったですけど、今日は特にすごかったですね。やっぱ年に一度のお祭り。来年はね、見に行きたいけど、どうかね。
来年はリーグに上がってるんじゃないですか。
またそんなこと言って。でも、まあね、それもありかななんてこともあるかもしれないですけど、今日は十分に堪能させていただきました。はい、気が抜けて、今は何もなんかホケーっとしてます。明日ね、早いんだよね、出るのが。ひどい日程だよね、これ。ただいまですね、12時40分です。明日出発は4時半です。どうなっちゃうんでしょうかね。それでは、楽しいレスルマニアの旅でした。どうもありがとうございました。
Well, there was a lot to take in from this special, so let's go part by part. The Yokohama event, or mostly the highlights of it, looked like an incredibly fun time. And while it was a fairly basic house show, the crowd helped to make everything throughout the card so enjoyable to watch. With this taking place close to a year after the wrestling boom period in the States had ended, it was awesome to see the Japanese fans be so red hot and taking in the WWF experience with such open arms the way they did. The remaining footage of press events, Tajiri's interviews, and Ogawa's journey in Toronto for Mania was also really cool to see. Getting to watch the talent from different promotions experiencing what other countries and cultures have to offer, especially Naoya being in Toronto for Fan Axxess and WrestleMania itself, are all great time capsules for those, including myself, that never got to grow up with or got the chance to take these trips and witness it all in person. Tajiri's interviews sprinkled throughout the special were just as great to watch. Learning more about how he got into wrestling and what his early years in the business were like, especially learning that he rejected going to WCW in favor of the WWF, are also some great parts to break things up, and makes me glad that Tajiri got to be one of the major focal points throughout this special. What's crazier to think from watching all of this is how the success of their return to Japan helped kickstart the WWE's yearly tours to the country. The company would go even further during its later trips by having Raw and SmackDown, don't forget Heat and Velocity, taped in the country during early 2005, and over a decade later would even host a live WWE Network special, with Brock Lesnar being featured and an NXT Championship match. While in recent years, we'd easily find videos or clips online of fans going to major shows, or have kickoffs and press conferences to get an idea of what the experience is like, this SmackDown Tour in Japan special helps preserve rare footage of those moments, while also giving you a great idea of how hot the WWF still was outside of the US post-Attitude Era. If you want to watch it in full, I recommend checking the upload of it on Nico Video, because much like I did, you'll likely see and learn about an extremely rare but very cool piece of wrestling history.